All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode, I think it's 005 now, of the Chad Driscoll video podcast. And I've got an awesome guest. He's one of my favorite dudes in this world here with us today. He was a cosmetic dentist for over 20 years. He was a basketball coach for as long as I can remember, coached all of my teams. And a very successful entrepreneur, and that guy is his name is Tim Driscoll, and he is my father. He's here with us today. What's going on, Tim?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. So I just kind of gave a little bit of a breakdown of who you are in my life, but fill in any gaps that I might have left out, and just kind of give the audience a look into your personal life now.
Well, since I retired from dentistry back in 2009, I've just started a couple companies as an entrepreneur. One is still actively going. Another one I sold off. And then in the meantime, since then, this last year, I decided I wanted to flip a house. So this winter, bought a foreclosure, rehabbed it, got it for sale now. That was a lot of fun, working with contractors and doing a lot of the work myself. And then just studying international finance markets, what's going on in the world, learning more about stuff that I didn't have time to, really look into or study when I was working full time.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that's awesome to hear. Again, we appreciate you being here today. Let's just kind of jump into it. We're here talking about hoops and really giving this audience a more cerebral background on basketball and kind of relating life to it. Really just sharing our experiences with it so that people can kind of stem from it and either not make the same decisions that we did or mistakes that we did, or just be able to grow as a person from it. So go ahead and tell me about the time, when did you really fall in love with basketball? I know you and Uncle Ken and Uncle Steve, you guys fell in love with it at a young age, but go ahead and just tell me about the time where you guys really started to love the game.
I think for me, it started when I remember my father and I actually making our own backboard. And we went over to one of his friends' homes and we cut the backboard out. We wrapped it in fiberglass. We had to paint it in this fiberglass material like multiple times. And we made this really sturdy backboard. We mounted it up on our garage, and it was literally mounted on our garage all the years we were there. And the only sad part of that, when my mom decided to sell her house, my brothers and I, we had thought about this, but we forgot to ever put it in the contract that we wanted the backboard removed from the garage before and not included in the sale of the house. So unfortunately, it went with the house. But I think that's where it started for me. Early on, I was probably in third grade. I remember just starting to play basketball, and I fell in love with the game. And as a kid, we just had a backyard with our court was our driveway was even on an angle. So the right side of the driveway, you'd have to be standing on grass to take a jump shot off the corner of the hoop. So, and we actually had a power line going over, so you had to play around that power line. But what I remember as a kid, we'd always have two basketballs. We'd have one inside sitting on the heating register, and then one playing with. And when the one we were playing with outside and the cold got too dead, then we'd bring it inside and put that on the heating register and bring out the other one. So we played all winter long. My brothers are 8 and 11 years younger than me. So, of course, I was taller than them for a lot of the years, bigger than them. Now they're both bigger than me. But my mom's one rule was, no blood. If someone was bleeding, the game was over. And so if we accidentally hit somebody and they start bleeding, we'd stuff them in the corner of the garage and give them some oily rags and just don't let mom see that you're bleeding, because we don't want the game to stop. So
yeah. And for anyone that's listening in that doesn't know where we're from the Chicagoland area. So the months possible to play outside and play basketball outside are very limited. So that's why we were getting out as much as possible. Yeah, that's great. So what was your strength and when you were in the driveway? Like, if you could take one skill that you were better than your brothers at, what was it?
If we were playing, just in a pure shot sense, I was better at using the backboard than them. their generation, they all started always trying to just, make the shot directly. So if we were playing horse, I would just take all bank shots.
Yeah.
And be able to beat them. And I learned how to take bank shots because my dad shot two-handed over his head while he played, and he could make bank shots from anywhere. So I learned how to make bank shots because I had to play horse against him. So that was probably my strength. As far as a game goes, I mean, I was more of a point guard. My one brother was a center. My other brother was a shooting, off guard or small forward. And so we all played the game a little differently. For me, I was never super fast, but I could see the game in my head. I realized the game was a lot about geometry and a lot about the proper angles and getting yourself in the right position to make a pass, getting into a passing lane. And so even though I wasn't the quickest, I could use that cerebral thought to, take advantage of somebody who was more athletic than I was.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing even for a lot of the audience that might be paying attention, like the lack in size. And I talked about this in a previous episode, like my lack in athletic ability and size slowly started to realize that I was going to have to do something else to make an impact on the game as we went on to higher levels, as I got into high school and stuff like that. So that's a great point there.
One thing I just thought of there too, that you don't even think about when you're a little kid moving up, the game at every level seems, as you move up and people become better, you would think in your mind that the game's getting faster, and it is getting faster. But the more you work on your skill sets to understand the game, not just dribbling and shooting, but understanding, like as a point guard, I had to direct people where to move, and I had to learn how to get to the proper angle to make the pass. When you start learning those aspects of the game and they become second nature to you, what I found that was really cool to me was the game slowed down.
Right.
Even though I was playing with bigger, faster players, the game slowed down. I could see everything and react quicker, and it just seemed like it was moving in slow motion, when it was working right.
Yeah, that was a cool phenomenon. And I didn't really have that until probably like, I don't know, I'd say like truly to like 5th or 6th grade. I remember it was like one game where I somehow found like 6 different passing lanes where, it was like threading the needle. And then that's really the point where my game visually started to slow down, and I started to realize that as you went up in skill, you had to develop your skills, but the game was gonna come a little bit more naturally to you once you could slow it down in your mind. And no, that's a great point. I love that. Now let's go into a little bit about like your coaching experience. So obviously, for anyone that's listening in, my dad here, he was my coach for, as long as I can remember, from when I was literally could get up a ball up onto the rim until, junior year of high school with AAU.
Yeah.
I guess how was it? How was it coaching? Just give a little bit about your background in terms of coaching, and how was it coaching your son and his friends?
Well, whenever you're coaching your son, first off, you don't, you have a special interest there in managing, his skill set or her skill set. And at the same time, you're responsible for all these other kids. So, I took that responsibility very seriously. I loved coaching. It got to the point for me, I played basketball competitively till I was 45. And then because of a couple injuries, severe injuries, decided, that I wasn't going to play anymore. So I missed that part of the game. But when I removed myself from playing every day, I got more and more into coaching, and I still felt part of the game.
Right.
But I think it was great, seeing the transformation of kids from one level to another. And when I really look back at it, when I was in dental school, I actually did a lot of refereeing of basketball. And while I was a referee, I did about 25 games a week throughout the whole season to pay for schooling. And I would watch the coaches. And one thing I took away from that was, it wasn't that I would say the fathers or the mothers were doing a bad job coaching. They were doing the best job that they could. But what I realized was many of them never had the skill sets, never were taught the skill sets of coaching, because coaching is a skill set in itself.
Right.
And so what I tried to do through the years was even offer, if I was working for the park district or helping them out, not working, but volunteering, I'd offer to, let me take 2 teams, or let me go, if you got some dads that have never coached, let them come to my practices, and I'll work with them on how to, run an efficient practice and actually get something done and move the skill sets along.
Right.
Instead of being you only get so many hours on the court. And what I saw a lot of times was just chaos.
Yeah.
And then that chaos relates to the game. A funny story, I remember, refereeing a game, and we're coming up the court, and this kid's probably in 3rd or 4th grade, and the coach is yelling to him from the sideline, "Run Indiana, run Indiana." So he yells out as the point guard, "Run Indiana." And then I see one of the forwards look up, and he goes, "What's Indiana?" He goes, "I don't know, just run something." The kids never understood, they're trying to remember all that stuff. You put all these high expectations on them to remember all these terms. So what I did as a coach, for many years on my team, we just ran plays that were like double pick down, double pick high, pick right, pick left, pick and roll. We said exactly what we were going to do.
Right.
And we were successful in doing that because the teams we were playing weren't coached on how to defend against that.
Yeah.
And so I just coached them on how I broke down the game to skill sets. I broke down the game to understanding what's going on the floor. I broke down the game to saying, when this happens, what are 3 things you should think about? What are 3 immediate things to think about?
Right.
And make the players respond back and tell me that, over and over and over again. And as you know, sometimes, even at practices, people get mad at the repetitiveness of it. But then all of a sudden you start seeing it happen on the court.
Sure. Yeah. I think, and that's a big problem that I've had with the youth basketball world in terms of coaching. I think too many people are coaching for the result of the game rather than really caring for the skill set of the people. And for the most part, throughout this entire video cast, as we go on, I'll probably address this topic numerous amounts of times because it's so vital. And you have to think about the funnel, right? In youth basketball, it's unlimited. There's no cuts. There's nothing like that. It's unlimited amount of people. And as you move down or into higher levels, the amount of people that are going to make that higher level team. So you take, 400 kids that play youth basketball in your town, and 12 of you are going to be on the varsity basketball team. So to just teach, to run a certain play, to me, it's sad that coaches are continually doing this, and that they think that they know best just because they watch basketball here and there, and they like to go play pickup basketball and all that kind of crap. And so it's just unfortunate that there are a lot of coaches out there that don't know what they're doing, and that the kids are suffering from it. So
yeah, think about when you hear a professional, for example, professional quarterback, he talks about when they study the plays, they're studying the plays before the game. And that's, as a basketball player, you need to do that too. You need to look at what your plays are. And as a point guard, you got to say to yourself, if we're running this play, what am I looking for? What's my first choice? What's my
right. Check down, first, second, third.
Know it in your head so that when you go to the game, you're just reacting. You're not trying to think about who's going to be open.
Right.
What am I looking for on this play when my forward cuts out? If the defender is high in the passing lane, I'm gonna wait for him to go back door, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not gonna pass that ball. Then I'm gonna look to number 2. And when you start playing that in your mind, and that's what we would do in practice, was talking more about not the play, but how to read the play.
Right. Yeah, it was a framework. You always said it was a framework for something else to happen.
Right. We ran motion offense. The best offense in the world is a transition offense when the defense isn't ready. That's what I always taught you guys. Get the ball up the floor, try to get them in a transition defense because they're not ready. Now, if they get in a transition defense and we got to slow the ball down, we call a play to set the framework for people to start moving.
Yeah.
That's it. Once you start moving, recognize and read your defenders and react to your defenders and take advantage of what they're doing. If they're overplaying you, go back door. If they're sagging behind you, go around a pick so you're open on a shot. And it's all that thought process that when you start to do that regularly, like for me as a guy that wasn't that fast, I could get an open shot because I knew how to read my defender. I could get away from him, whether he's playing me tight, playing me loose, I could get away from him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. That was, that's a big thing. That was a big thing for me to really realize, you know, and that's where I was blessed to be taught that way, because there was always it was always knowing that, hey, I didn't necessarily have to run the play to completion. And that it was a little bit of freedom on our end because, hey, if we had any type of skill, it was freedom to be able to know, okay, this is what we can do with play X, Y, Z, and still get something out of it. So that was awesome. Yeah.
Even I just want to add this too. You know, what we worked a lot on was, and I see this being a mistake for a lot of players, is if you have a coach that wants you to run a play, and I'm supposed to get it in. You know, I'm number one guy, and I'm supposed to get it in number two coming off a pick.
Right.
When the guy comes off the pick, the player is watching his own player with his eyes. He's watching his own player, and he's going to pass him the ball. You should be watching the defender. You know where the offensive player is going to be. So you should be able to pass it to the offensive guy, watching the defender and reading the defender. So we worked a lot on that too, if you remember, just in skill sets.
Yeah.
We taught you guys how to look off from who you're passing it to, read the defender, because if he's overplaying, you're not going to make that pass.
Sure.
You know? And just like if you listen to NFL quarterbacks, they'll tell you they don't watch their receivers. They're just watching the defensive guys.
Yeah, exactly.
They know where they got to throw the ball. They just know they got to recognize where's the defender, and if the defender is here, I can't throw it. I got to throw it here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Here's another question going at you. What was the hardest part about coaching me as your son? Were there any tough struggles in terms of, I don't know, really anything mentally or application in a game, stuff like that?
I think the toughest part is, you know, is always treating your son or daughter the same as everyone else on the team, even though it's impossible to always do that, right? You have a vested interest in a single person there. But for me, it was trying to push you as hard as I could without it becoming something like, because I was your coach, I was being overbearing. You know, I wanted to push you as much as every other player to be the best you could. And I always recognized you had great skill sets, so I wanted to push you harder and further. In fact, your skills and your ability to transform and become a better player pushed all your other players around you to become better. And that's a sign of, you know, a really good player. If you can make everybody around you better, and everyone around you work harder. You know, one of even, you know, Riley Bailey, who worked with us, you know, at the AAU level, the two of you guys pushed everybody. Right. And Riley was like a second son to me, but I could push him really hard. And I knew where I could push him to. And I knew, you know, if he stepped over the line, I could shut it down. Just like you, I could shut it down.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to be firm, and you have to, you know, everything I did, I think it was everything I did in my mind, I had to do it to the best interest of you as a person and a player, period.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's
and then I didn't care about how many wins I had. We had a lot of success and a lot of wins. I didn't care about how many wins. I cared about seeing basketball players being transformed on the court. And just because we transformed players, we made them be able to think and play the game.
Right.
Wins came.
Right.
You know, that just happens.
Yeah, and I think I personally had a pretty awesome experience with having a dad as a coach, because I see so many other people really struggling with it, and it almost seems like they're miserable and have a terrible time. So the comparison to other people has made me realize that it was a great experience that I had. And I think you did a fantastic job of mediating everything in terms of the emotions, and like we never really had any type of like people jawing at me saying like, "Oh, you're just playing because you're the coach's son," that kind of stuff. So, and I think it's a testament to you and how you handled things, and really how you got the team to realize, hey, we're in this all together, and the role model that you were for the other guys around the team. So that's I guess my 2 cents with all that. What do you think the biggest thing that youth basketball it lacks today? Like obviously the game is changing as we're growing up. It's becoming a lot more of a 3-point aspect, and a lot of people say that's analytics, that kind of stuff, or but anything. It could be habits, it could be off court stuff, it could be their attitude, anything like that. Whatever you think that the youth basketball is lacking today as they're growing up.
One of the things I learned as a coach as I went along was the value and importance of a jump stop. And, here we are as dads and coaches, and we were taught as kids to take layups off of 1 foot.
Right.
And so we go teach these kids how to take layups off of 1 foot in practice with no one defending them. And then they get into a game and there's contact, and you got to change your angle going into the basket last second, and they're off balance, and they're, okay, they can make 80% of the layups in practice, but they can't make 1 out of 10 in a game.
Sure.
And once I realized, and I was taught, and I literally was taught, I went to a coach's clinic while you were, going to a week-long clinic, and I came up with 80 pages of notes after coaching for years. And what I realized, what was evident to me and what was proven to me was that all the best players that become D1 players, that become college athletes, that become professional players, all use a jump stop anytime they're going into the basket. It's always off at 2 feet because you're controlling your body, you're getting ready for the contact. And if you don't believe it, go watch a basketball game and take out a piece of paper and mark out in a pro game or a D1 game how many times guys go off of 1 foot.
No, yeah, absolutely.
It does not happen. And here we are teaching kids to go off of 1 foot in the game. Why?
Right.
So when I changed that at the grade school level even, kids fought me on it because they were always taught 1 foot. And I'd have to, even like I had one kid that would just not do it in practice. And I'd say every time he didn't do it, I'd say run a lap. And he'd just do it wrong and run a lap. And I said, someday you're going to get it, right? But he missed all these layups in the games.
Right.
When other kids that were taking that skill on and getting themselves in control when they would go to the basket would do that. The second thing I would say, because I think they're pretty close, is mid-range jump shots. There's such an emphasis on the 3-point line that I think guys aren't practicing, players aren't practicing mid-range shots as much as they should.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, I'm kind of an analytic guy with basketball now. I do think that the pull-up jumper, so I know like at PGC we learned it as like the PG layup. So it was like an 8 to 10 foot pull-up jumper. I think that is definitely missing in the game, or coming off screens, that kind of stuff, which is a little bit higher level. But I do agree that's really missing in our game. I do think that like as a coach and as a player, especially at the youth level, you should why would you work on anything else besides like trying to get layups? I think there's just so much skill sets that can be developed when you concentrate for like a good season on working as a team to get layups, in terms of how to screen, angles of screens, keeping your head up when you have the ball to give them good passes, passing angles, all this misdirection, all this kind of stuff that can be taught by a simple drill of, hey, we're going to run motion till we get layups, or if you go breakdown drills, whether it's 3-on-3, anything like that. Now you have to attack the basket. I just think there's a lot of skill sets that come involved when you try and get layups. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree that one of the skills that we always worked on was, if you remember, we'd go 3-on-3 inside the 3-point line, and you could make 2 dribbles to get both feet into the paint.
Right.
2-foot jump stop, and then you either had to shoot the ball if you were open, guy on your hip, open, not guy in your face, or you had to pass it out. And that skill set, working on that is very tedious in practice. But what it does in a game is if everyone's concentrated on taking threes, defensively, you're an easy team to defend. But if a guy doesn't know if I'm going to take a three or attack the paint, now he's got to step back a little bit. So one, I might have an open shot quicker. Second, if I can get by him, get my feet in the paint and draw another defender, now I can find a guy that has a open look at a three versus a contested look at a three.
Yeah.
And like, as you know, when AAU and when I coached you guys and you guys are capable of shooting threes, you could take, if you took open threes and missed everyone in the game, I wouldn't say a word.
Right.
But if you took 1 3 contested, I would say something.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody else that might be open, right? Let's work till we get the open shot, uncontested, especially at 3. I mean, okay, now once you're 6'8" and you can get above any player, then you can be Curry and take a 3-point shot with a guy in your face. But that's not most people's skill sets.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was huge for us. And, I think that was a huge component for us to really beat better teams. And we were playing, just to give people listening an idea, we were playing teams week in, week out that had at least 4 Division I players. And that were, they were like each team, I say the average height was at least an inch taller than all of us. And, we were coming in there with guys that were just like no names from the suburbs. And we'd come in there and we'd give it to them. Like every single time we walk on the court, these people would be like, okay, like these guys would come out thinking that they were just gonna roll us, and like 5 minutes into the game, next thing they know, they're down 14. So and it was a lot of just like my dad's saying, it was a lot of habit building, and I give a testament to the kids that were working with us. They bought into the stuff that my dad was trying to teach, and they realized that from buying in practice that there was a lot more freedom. That the game didn't have to be so structured, but at the same time, it had to be structured, and the structure that we were providing was so much more advanced than a lot of the other teams that we're going right now. Now, granted, with a lot of the teams, like, hey, you watch Villanova and some of the other, in my opinion, some of the other good habit-based teams in the country right now, you'll see some of the youth basketball trying to transition to that, but I still don't think it's what it could be, and I don't think it ever will be. And I mean, it's because you have things like hoop mixtape and stuff like that. But I mean, that's for another day. And but yeah, I mean, that was what separated us. That was what kept us in games. And I mean, we drew so many fouls from getting in the paint and pump faking and getting to the line. We had so many wide open threes, and granted, we had good shooters. I mean, we had guys that could knock down 7 to 10 threes in a row. And so that helped out a lot,
And I'll tell you what, those coaches, when we play these teams that had 4 to 6 Division I players, they would walk onto the court and they're used to measuring their opponent based on how many D1 guys are on
right.
the side they're playing. And they walk on the court knowing none of our guys were AU or Division I players. Every time we play one of those teams, the most we ever lost to those teams by was 3 points, 4 points. And the coaches would walk up to me from the opposing team and would always say, I want to congratulate you because that's a true basketball team. Because all 5 guys are working together. You can have 1 really good guy or 4 really good guys, and the skill can overcome another team. But we would scare them all the time.
Yeah.
We would shock them that what we were capable of.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun time. And I can't even say enough, like the amount of like I like to call average Joes, like the amount of average Joes that we had with us, they were just no names from the suburbs. And, we were all, the thing that I noticed about a lot of that stuff was we were all pretty, like, very efficient at a certain skill. Like Chuck he could just shoot the shit out of the ball. Jordan Hester, he was getting into the lane whenever he wanted. I mean, Harold would run the floor and block shots and, do anything he could for teammates. It was a great mix of guys. And I really think from that's where we kind of benefited. But,
another thing maybe I could share with some people that are looking to, be coaches that are listening to your podcast, whatever AAU team I had, just what you said, I would look at what are the special skill sets that I have of each one of these guys.
Right.
And then how can I position those players within a framework of how I want to run an offense or whatever? How do I position them to have ultimate success?
Yeah.
And maybe I have to change a couple plays, to get their skills. As an example, Chuck, who you mentioned, great three-point shooter. What I noticed one year was if the ball moved around the perimeter and he would catch the ball from the side and turn to shoot, he'd hit about 4 out of 10 threes. But if someone attacked the paint and his guy stepped back and he was already looking at the rim and he caught the ball, he'd hit like 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I would run plays that guys would attack the paint to free him up on the 3 line looking at the basket already, right? So I would do things to support his skill set, he could shoot threes 4 out of 10, but why not give him the ability to shoot it 8 out of 10? Change something in the framework of what we were doing.
Right.
And that as a coach, you got to do that almost every year. You got to look at who are my guys, what are their skill sets, and how can I use those skill sets to take advantage of not only individually, but I would also look at it if I did get a chance to go scout a team. What skills do I have that I can use to take down what's their best, what they do.
Right.
And one game I remember, we were up in Wisconsin. You mentioned Jordan, and trying to remember who the other really fast point guard was that we had. But
Mike.
Yeah. Mike. So I noticed this team we were going to be playing. I went to scout them, and what they did was ball up the court fast, right? Anything happened, boom, ball was half court on a pass, and they're taking it up. So I said to those two guys, your job on a transition is take away that half court pass. Double the guy that gets the ball. Do not let him get beyond half court. These guys were beating everybody in that tournament by 20. We shut them down and beat them by 20 because they couldn't do what they wanted to do.
Right.
So I just had to figure out how to use the assets I had to shut down their best asset.
Yeah.
And as a coach, that's what you have to do. And not so much, I see a lot of coaches trying to run the same thing all the time, getting that same entry pass all the time, and all of a sudden, guys are stepping in that passing lane, picking it off.
Right.
You're putting your players at a disadvantage from being able to read the game. Teach them to read the game and react to it rather than run a play.
Right. Yeah. What's one thing, what's one intangible that you think lacks? And this could be, don't even consider basketball, because we might have some people listening that are not really interested in basketball, but what's one thing that they can do intangibly, I guess, to further their success in their life, their school, or their personal life with their parents, brothers, sisters, stuff like that?
Well, I'll share what in my life, what I thought the most important part of my basketball career, and it made a huge difference in just how I thought as a person. In high school, my senior year, my basketball team, and I was not a starter. I was behind a guy that could run a 40-yard dash in 4.1. So he was super fast. So I had to learn how to play defense because I'd guard him all the time. But our coach, we went 3-22 our senior year. We so happened to play all 25 games on the road because our court was under construction. They didn't get it done. But we still had we never lost by more than 5 points. Mm-hmm. But we had struggles to get over that edge. But every practice and every game, my coach would require every one of us individually to come up to him and shake his hand. And as he shook his hand, he would look you straight in the eye, and he would say, "What did you give me today?" Meaning, did you give me 100%? Did you give me 50%? And if whatever you said, he didn't react to whatever you said. He didn't make you wrong. But if he didn't agree with you, he just wouldn't let go of your hand. He made you become responsible for whatever you provided that day, whatever
right.
effort. And taking responsibility that way every day, I think led to a lot of positive things in my life, because anything I do, I just take responsibility for it. Good or bad, I take responsibility. So on a day that my body wasn't moving, I didn't feel like giving it to him, I might say to him, I gave you, 90%. He wouldn't let go of my hand. I said, all right, I'll give you 50%. All he would say then was, can you bring 100% tomorrow?
Right.
It's this, all he was doing was realizing that he was my coach, but responsibility for how hard I want to work, how much I want to learn, it's all on me.
Right.
And that's true of any basketball player. You could be part of a team that has the best basketball coach in the world, but if you don't take responsibility for learning the game, taking it to a higher level, working on your skill sets at home, bringing 100% to practice every day, no matter if you feel good or not.
Yeah.
Then that's on you. Yeah. And that's okay. If even on the days when I couldn't give him 100%, he'd say, that's okay. You had the flu. I get it.
Right.
100% tomorrow.
Right. And it seemed like he was really searching for a little bit of the truth, for you to really call out your own truth,
Exactly. He left it on us. It wasn't his responsibility to berate us for having a bad practice.
Yeah.
It was his responsibility to make us recognize if we had a bad practice, why was it? Was it because we didn't give 100%? We're not feeling good, whatever. He just wanted honesty, and he also, another great lesson he did in that was he always showed us that through maybe running sprints or running miles or whatever, that your mind will tell you that you can't go any farther when your body can.
Yeah.
And he would always show us that. And he would do things to make us recognize that we just blew past what we thought was a barrier. And so you start recognizing that all the things you put up as barriers that, I can only work that hard in practice. And then all of a sudden you work past that. You go, well, if I can do that, what if I can do this? You start expanding your ability to put more and more effort into the game and more effort into your own skill set being advanced. There's no limits then. You could really, do what you want to do.
Right. Right. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. There's a podcast that I listened to where he talks a lot about like the 40% rule. And I guess he had someone on there that was in the military, and within his training, I don't know, his officer taught him the 40% rule. So when you reach like, technically when your brain says like, hey, I can't go anymore, you're actually at like 40% of your actual work output, which is crazy to me. Like you're actually not even halfway there to your exact, hey, like flat line, you're dead, so that really puts it into perspective, like how much hard work you can really put in and to be able to push through things. And I think the comment that you're making is, it goes even further than how many sprints you can run or how many times you can do your the defensive shuffles, or how long you can sit in a plank or a wall sit, whatever. It goes beyond that in terms of, hey, discipline and how hard you can work in your life and invest in your daily activities, whether it's school, whether it's your parent life. Like I always go back to like the small habits, like how much I think it tells a lot about people's mental toughness, and like if they wake up and make their bed in the morning, it's just how much energy would that take to do something extra or to be excellent in a certain area of your life. And that's what really we're trying to get a lot of this message out to the people listening, because I think it's so much more like, yeah, we talk about basketball, but we're talking about life through basketball. And I just feel like that lesson that you shared from your coach goes just so much further than another wind sprint.
And the other thing that I always committed to was whatever we had at that moment, whatever, if there was a challenge or something I was correcting, it was corrected and it was done, right? It was not brought back. It's not brought to the next practice. And I took that even into life. And interesting story. I had a staff member that I had to correct her on something she was doing in my practice. So I brought her in the office. I sat her down. I went over exactly what I didn't want her doing. I went over exactly what I did want her doing. We came to an agreement that was okay. And she left. And then the next morning she comes in and she comes to apologize.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm sorry for, having to, put you through that or whatever. And I looked at her and I said, what are you talking about? She goes, what we talked about yesterday. And I said, well, you got to refresh my memory. She goes, you don't remember what we talked about yesterday? I said, didn't we handle it yesterday? And I was serious. I didn't remember what we had talked about because in my mind, we had handled it and it was done.
Yeah.
Same in basketball. You have a bad practice. My coach made us take responsibility for it. The next day, he didn't punish us for having a bad practice the day before.
Right.
It was a new start. Bring 100% energy.
Yeah.
I loved what Point Guard College taught you guys was when you, as a team, when you get out on a floor, even before the coach is there, they taught you get the energy up on that floor and warm up as if Coach Krzyzewski's going to be walking in.
Right.
To look at you guys, does he want to see you dead on the floor? Or does he want to see you active on the floor?
Yeah.
Your coach isn't there. You got to take responsibility. Fire your team up and get everyone ready to go. Don't always rely on the coach to push you. Become that leader on the floor. Take the next step, and that's what coaches are trying to do: is find out who is capable of pushing the people on the floor.
Right. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a huge thing that was difficult for me, and I talked about this in a different episode yesterday. It was difficult for me to try and implement, and I think for a lot of kids, like, hey, they want to be that energy giver, and it's difficult to implement at first, but once you can get people bought into doing it or just consistently be giving energy, people will start to form to yourself. It's like energy is contagious. It's not like something people like look at you and say, oh, like he's giving energy, like, wow, what a loser. Like, no, I mean, if that person, like, there was some people in my life that were like that, and like you just say, like, screw them. Obviously they don't give a shit about what is actually going on in the team practice and the success of the team. They're just really have a little bit of, I guess, ignorance with themselves and some trouble with themselves. So yeah, I would say for anyone listening, like, that's probably one of the biggest takeaways of this entire podcast is, like, be prepared and be giving energy to your coach, like, from the start,
and it can start with as simple as being the most active talker on the floor.
Right.
You don't have to, point to someone and thank them for a good pass when you made your shot. Or congratulate someone for making a hard shot or whatever. It's just that dynamic of you start talking on the floor, calling out where defenders are at, and, just moving your players around. And you're always active with your voice, and then you start being active with your voice in complimenting people.
Right.
You encourage them to do something better, right? To keep doing that. And then all of a sudden it just comes naturally. They're going to up their game if your energy is at a higher level.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a huge part. It's such a huge part. Yeah. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I'm just going to finish with a few other questions, but what are you grateful for, on a day-to-day basis? I think a huge part of our lives is that, like, we have to kind of sit back and take notice and be grateful for a lot of things that we have rather than what we don't have. I really want to include this into every episode. So what are you grateful for?
Well, I look at it as, everything that's happened in my life has happened for a reason. I mean, the big guy upstairs has a plan for me, and I can't look at any failures or any successes as a positive or a negative, meaning, why did he have me have this failure? Because unless you have a failure, you can't enjoy a success.
Right.
And so I never looked at it like that. My best example there would be, I had to leave dentistry, which I loved, because of a tremor, and I couldn't practice anymore. And I didn't become the person that said, I'm mad at God for not letting me be a dentist anymore. Instead I said, okay, you don't want me to be a dentist anymore. What do you want me to be next? What did I learn in dentistry that I now carry to my next phase? What did I learn as a basketball player that I now get to carry to the next phase of my life?
Right.
And, to me, basketball was a huge influence in my life of who I am, my work ethic, and how I work with people and things I enjoy in life. I mean, I'm grateful for, all the experiences that I've had, good or bad, because they were all supposed to happen to lead me to where I am right now.
Right.
That's it, and whether they're good or bad, you got to look at them and go, okay, so what was the lesson there?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do right to have that accomplishment? Why did I have that failure? What's the lesson for me to learn? It's not about the failure. It's about, what do I need to learn to move on to the next phase of my life? There's a reason for everything that happens. And that's just the way I look at things.
Cool. I love that. Yeah. That's awesome in terms of the almost kind of, we go back to basketball a little bit, go back to like the mistake response stuff. Like it seemed like your philosophy on like failure was, hey, it's just going to jumpstart me into something else, and really realize that like it's not worth the time to sit and dwell on failures or any type of setback, but it's the process of leading you into what was planned for you from the start,
One door closes, another one opens.
Right.
Just because I wasn't the fastest guy on the floor, that forced me to become a better ball handler, a smarter player, learn how to read defenses better to get myself open. So if I was a faster player, maybe I wouldn't have learned those things.
Sure.
So I never look at that as a disadvantage. I'm 6 foot tall. Would I have liked to be 6'6" playing basketball? Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't me. So I had to learn, other things and be grateful for the things that I had. And then whatever I have, learn how to use them better.
Right. All right. Last question here. If you could sit down with anyone for a nice steak dinner, I know you like to go to Ruth Chris, but for a nice steak dinner, let's say at Ruth Chris, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh boy. Dead or alive? I never really thought about that one. In the basketball realm,
it could be whatever. If it's basketball because it's on your brain, go ahead and fire.
Basketball is on my brain, so I love learning from coaches. I'd love to sit down with like a Coach Krzyzewski to really learn on what amazes me about him is if you watch him in a game, he's not out there yelling at the players, right? Because he's already done the work before.
Right.
He might be, talking to him in a timeout or something when he brings them to the side, but he's not like, you see so many coaches like on a sideline yelling at players all the time.
Yeah. Like Calipari.
To me, that just says you haven't prepared him in practice right,
Right.
So, I'd like to be able to, since I get to see Krzyzewski in games, I'd like to learn more about what he does in practice, what he does to prepare the guys mentally.
Sure.
Not that I would ever be able to use that skill set. I'm not going to probably have an opportunity to be a D1 coach, but that's always fascinated me on, moving a whole team of people, because if you can move a team of people, you can move a team of people in any job.
Yeah.
You can learn that. So, in basketball, boy, just in life, huh? Never really thought of that other than, man, I'd like, we'd all want to, walk with the Lord at the same time for sure, and just learn more from them. But, every day we get to do that anyway, just not in physical presence. So
yeah,
I don't really have anyone that I really like worldwide would want to sit down and meet with like that. I think for me, I've always related things I've learned in basketball to carrying them over to my life. I'm so appreciative for the fact that I got to play the game.
Yeah.
I miss playing the game every day. I wish physically I could still play every day without the injuries.
Right.
I could play, but I have to put up with injuries for 2-3 weeks at a time, which is fun. But it was a great game. Taught me a lot about myself. Taught me a lot about life, about working with other people, creating teams. getting to a final goal. And when you're on a team that has success in anything, there's just nothing better.
Right. Right. Well, awesome. That concludes, I guess, our video cast for today. But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being my first guest on here. It's awesome to have my dad and my first coach on here. Really grateful for everything that you have gave me. So thanks for sharing all the stories that you've had. And yeah, you got anything else?
Well, I just want to say I'm so grateful that I got to coach you, but I want everyone to know in this podcast that, if you want somebody to follow about the game, about learning the game, I mean, you'd be one of my top picks, dude.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, people can learn a lot from you, and you've got a lot you could share with them, and a lot they could, add to their life, their game, have a better basketball career and everything. So kudos to you.
Yep. You heard it here first. We're going to blow this shit up, blow the door off the hinges and everything. This is going big. So, yeah, awesome. Until next time, guys, go ahead and subscribe below. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube page so you can get all the updates for when we put out another cast. I guarantee you this will not be the last time that I've got my dad on here. It's a great guest to have. So have a great day. Go kill it in whatever you're doing. See you guys later.